Hello, everyone. My name's Cash Miller. This is Emerging Brands Franchises on the Rise. We're talking to the organizations that are out there that you may want to be a part of. Today, I've got with me Willie Katinowsky. He is with Dumpster Dudez. Willie, it's great to have you on. Rentals, they say dumpster rentals. That is a great, space to be in a lot of these markets, especially with all the construction and stuff we've had over the years. It's great to have you. Tell us a bit about yourself and what Dumpster Dudez, does.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Happy to represent the brand, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just a great industry to be in right now, and from anyone who's thinking about starting a business, especially if it's the first go round, simple is key. And this business model, I think that's where a lot of the value lies, is in the simplicity of the business model and what we're doing. But a little bit about us and anybody who's in business and running a business. What you're doing is important, but I think the who really, what really drives the success and the growth and everything and makes it a fun place to work or a fun industry to be in. And in terms of, what makes Dumpster Dudez special, I definitely think it's who we are as a team. And when I say, we'll take myself out of that and really highlight the three franchisors who are at the helm of this, in Dustin Keene, our founder, Aaron Warshall, and Brian Johnson, tremendous people to work with. And I think, who you meet at Discovery Day and really, it's those three that have been why, the 17, 18 people who onboarded with us in the last year and a half, why everyone decided to take the leap with us. So.
Yeah. Well, you said 17, 18 people, like in a year and a half. That's some pretty good growth too. How long have you guys been franchising, and why did, why was that route taken as a business?
Yeah. So we'll start with Dustin's story, right? So Dustin Keene, he's the founder of Dumpster Dudez, very hardworking person, had a trucking business, actually that he was doing in the early 2010s. And around 2015, his personal vehicle breaks down and he needs to find something to go grocery shopping in. And in his searches comes across a good deal on a hook lift truck and 10 dumpsters. And that's how Dumpster Dudez gets started. So, he had no idea at that time that, this was going to be a franchise or that this was even going to be his full-time focus, right? His dumpster rental business. But he has an amazing, intuitive knack for marketing, came up with a great brand, great coloring, great logos, everything. And it took off. And I think it was around his second year, sometime in his second year of doing that, he decided, all right, I'm going to sell off the trucking business and I'm going to focus on Dumpster Dudez full time. And that was the right decision for him. That the business blew up after that. And to answer the second, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say a lot of entrepreneurs at some point in their careers make pivots, and he was already an entrepreneur. It's interesting though that he ends up with like a vehicle breakdown leads to a dumpster rental franchise.
Yeah,
wouldn't have figured that as a start point to where they are, where you guys are today.
Yeah, and you can find this information in our item 19, but not only did it lead to a new business for him, but it's a business that's over $1 million a year in revenue. So, quite the pivot from a part-time experiment, needing something to take to the grocery store to where we're at today, and 20 locations and I think 13 different states right now. So yeah, definitely unforeseen trajectory, we can say.
When did you guys start franchising then?
Yes. So Dustin sold his first franchise territory to a childhood best friend right next door. That was in 2019, we'll say.
Okay.
And shortly after that, he sold the second territory to Aaron Warshall, who is also one of the franchisors that I mentioned. So that was the first 3 units. And those were the 3 locations that were up and running when we put the rest of Dustin put the rest of the corporate team together, and we started formally putting this offer out. And that was in April of 2022.
Yeah. So April of 2022 to now, because, suddenly you just said, like 17 more because you're up to 20. So the concept itself is starting to really take off, huh?
Yeah. A lot of kind of what I started off saying, the simplicity of the business model. And when you meet Dustin, and you meet Aaron, and you meet Brian, and you get to look everybody in the eye. The phone calls are great, discovery processes are great, but there's a lot of power in that discovery day. And I think when you come and you get to meet everybody, you get to see it, you get to pick up a dumpster and put it down for the first time and just see how it all works. It's, I don't want to say an easy decision because it's certainly scary, but it feels a lot easier at that point. And we're so lucky. We have the best franchisees. I'm sure everybody says that, but we really feel that we have such an awesome team. If you looked at everybody's LinkedIn profile or resume, you might not necessarily see the connection, but if you got everybody in the room together and everyone was hanging out, you would get it. You would feel it. It's just an awesome group of people, and we're very fortunate.
Well, that's really important with any business, especially with, franchise businesses, because you can end up with this like disconnect between the franchisees and the franchisor, and really they've got to be on the same page, especially if you've got a younger, franchise that's really just, it's getting going. Like I say, it's really important that the people that, put it together, the founders, that, they have that connection, especially those early franchisees, because it's going to make everything just go a lot smoother. And you got to work more hand in hand because you're still going to be figuring out a bit of what's working and what's not.
Yeah. And from the top down, Dustin and Aaron and Brian actually all knew each other from high school before this all started, and they all went separate ways. And Aaron worked for Brian at one point, and, just coming full circle, had a conversation about marketing because that was Brian's, it's another company that handles marketing. And by the end of it, it was one of those things where they all couldn't help but partner together and take this thing to the next level. And it's starting to look like that's happening for us as we're growing pretty quickly here.
Yeah. So, now dumpster rental is not itself a new concept. I mean, that's been around for a long time. Why do you think people are buying into Dumpster Dudez? Because like I say, if, you sell 17 or so franchises and basically a year, maybe a little bit more, that's really good. That's significant. So why are people buying into Dumpster Dudez?
Yeah, you bring up a fantastic point that I try to throw into every introductory call that I have. We didn't invent dumpster rental, right? And the landscape can be competitive in any market. There's somebody, whether there's a Dumpster Dudez outlet there or not, right? Wherever you're at, somebody has a dumpster rental business, right? To go back to the who of who we are, and that having to trickle down to the franchisees, but it's really about our customer service model, our commitment to a core value in our company from top down that the franchisees need to share is just treating people like you want to be treated. And in dumpster rental, there's a lot of companies, a lot of smaller companies, a lot of franchise systems, people, a lot of big players like Waste Management and other very large billion-dollar, companies. And not everyone, but most of the competition is dropping the ball in some capacity, whether it's failure to communicate, making it difficult to book, or, if you're a resident who's not worked in construction, there's 4 different size dumpsters we have. You don't know necessarily what size you need. And we do know. And so do the other people running the businesses, but not everyone's always accessible. Right. So just trying to make it easy. We're never the main project, right? With the dumpster rental, it's always something else, whatever's going into it. That's the main focus. And so we need to make this as easy as possible. And then what we call business 101. And we sometimes laugh when we say that, but it's, being there when you say you're going to be there, picking up on time. A lot of contractors have a crew that's finished with their job, and a dumpster gets left there 3-4 extra days, and the customer's not happy, or their customer's not happy, the contractor's not happy. We just don't do that to people. And that means picking up a dumpster at 8 p.m. at night because something unexpected happened. Well, you still got to pick it up. And that's who we are as a team from the top down. And that's who our franchisees are, and where the success comes in, and what differentiates us, I guess, from the rest of the competitive market.
Yeah, it's really communication with those customers, because it's valuing them, especially if you get contractors and things like that. Because you make a really good point about it. Dumpsters being left longer than they should be, and that can make the contractor look bad, because that's what the end customer, like whatever property that dumpster is at, they're not thinking about where the dumpster came from. They're thinking about it's there because their contractor brought it in, and it's their contractor's responsibility to get rid of it. So, that's going to reflect poorly on that, which the contractor isn't going to care for. And I would assume, that can spoil a lot of relationships, which of course, if the other guy's doing it, great, because it's leaving opportunity for you and your franchisees.
Right. Yeah. And another place that the ball gets dropped in this industry too is just inventory management. You have to have dumpsters if you want to rent them. Right.
Yeah.
But
right.
You also don't want a full lot. And that's another place where we add a lot of value too, where we're helping our franchisees. These are expensive purchases. These, dumpsters are not cheap. Trucks aren't cheap. So those purchases have to come at the right time. Right. And we're here for that as well, to help, make sure it's all data driven. Right. And when you have other units that, hey, at this point we track what's called utilization rate. We know how many times a month you're turning each dumpster, when it's time to start looking at this purchase. And then we have to take a look at your cash flow and just make sure it's the right time and the right decision for your business. But, the smaller businesses that don't have that kind of support, or even a larger system that isn't offering that kind of support, when they don't have a dumpster and we're getting that call, we're ready to take that business. And really, like you said about the contractors, it just needs to be kind of out of sight, out of mind. They need to know that if they shoot us a text, the dumpster's going to be there. And that's one less thing that person who's managing that other business needs to worry about. Then there's little extra things too. We put boards down under every dumpster. It's not a difficult thing to do. It's not very time consuming, but surprisingly, a lot of companies don't do it. But send the message, hey, we care about your property. We care about your customer's property. Those little things go a long way.
Yeah, no, they really do. And I think that's, that speaks to the value of buying into the franchise system, because it's a lot of those little things that you're looking at, because you are also at the same time looking at the bigger picture, because you have all of these franchises. A lot of times when you start a business, that's not a franchise, if you were to go into the dumpster, rental business, you wouldn't think of all those little things, especially the analytics of, how many you have on hand, how many are already rented out, really having a trackable system. Those are things that the independent operator is not even going to be aware they need until they need it. Whereas you're, up front, you're going to say, look, this is how this works. And this is the system, and you need to stick to this for it to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen it go the other way too, where we have a franchisee whose lot is almost empty. And that bit of that panic sets in. Like, is it time? Oh, I need more dumpsters. It does not necessarily. Your inventory might be low, but purchasing too early could be a little bit detrimental to your growth too, if you put yourself in a bad cash flow situation. So just having those metrics on both sides of it stop you from making a bad decision, and make sure your timing is, helpful.
Yeah. Let's talk about, the startup side of this, not the cost structure. I'll get to that later. What I'm wondering is when you're first getting going, like, how many people out the gate? Because over time you're going to grow. But where are you starting? Like, from a standpoint of staff, number of dumpsters you got to be able to buy, trucks, things like that, to establish your foundation.
Yeah. So inventory wise, it's one truck and 24 dumpsters to start. And we have 4 different sizes, so 6 of each size.
Okay.
Important to note with our trucks, by design, remember Dustin has his trucking background and a CDL license that he still maintains. We keep the CDL out of our business model. So you do not need a CDL to operate these trucks.
Okay.
For the owner operator, it's not as relevant until they're at that second truck, right? When you're hiring and you're bringing more staff in, you don't want to have to pay CDL wages when you don't need to. We've also found a nice niche with the sizes that we offer, where this truck can handle all 4 sizes. So as you grow your inventory, every truck you own can move any dumpster you own.
That's important.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
easier. It's a logistics
Yeah.
operation at the end of the day. If you have a 25 yarder that needs to get delivered and one that needs to get emptied, well, obviously you don't want to go back to the lot, right? So empty one, take it to new location.
Hmm.
And to answer your question about the staffing needs, an owner operator can run this as a one person show out of the gate. And because of that, it also lends itself to be a good model for more of a managerial, a management type model where you just hire a driver and you're more overseeing with.
Yeah, you can be kind of semi-absentee.
Yeah.
Like you have to be involved,
Yeah.
finances and things like that, but you don't necessarily have to do the day-to-day work.
Yeah, I don't know. I get weary of saying anything with absentee model because I don't know if there is such a thing, but semi-absentee is, I think, is accurate.
Yeah, you still got to be hands-on, to some
Yeah.
degree, but you don't necessarily have to drop the dumpsters off if you don't want to.
Right, exactly. And a driver can do that, and you can find somebody in your area that's hanging drywall or doing something a little bit more strenuous, and they show up every day and they can greet a customer and say hello if they're outside when they go to drop it off. You don't need much more than that. There's a software we use to manage everything: inventory management, payment processing, logistics, all that. So your driver's just logging into an app, following directions to each location, and it's pretty simple to even check on them throughout the day with that software. You don't have to give them a call. You can see where they are, what they're doing, and it's easy to do it that way. Yeah. Or if you're going to run it yourself, which we've had probably about 75% of our new franchisees are doing it that way, owner operator model. Very easy to do that as well. We try to line up. Probably the next question you have. We try to line up all the marketing and all the extra things that are driving sales. We have all that set up. It's kind of a la carte. You pick what you want to do. We manage the relationships with the different vendors. There's some cold calling initiatives that we oversee early on, where we have other people making the calls for our franchisees just to get pricing out, and that's going well. And so we're just hopefully driving as much traffic early on and getting those dumpsters out there, because once they're out there, they're billboards, they're marketing for you as well. So
what kind of, in the case of the dumpsters themselves, so like what kind of rental rates, and then, what are you looking at turns, like how does the pricing structure work?
Yeah, we recommend let me start by saying our franchisees have final say on all of this, what the pricing is, and the length of rental that they want to offer. And so a lot of that's market driven. The cost, really, there's the dump fees that you have at these sites we use called transfer stations, and their per ton dump rate for everyone, for the competition as well, that typically is what's setting everyone's pricing, right? So we have a strategy around that we train our franchisees on. But usually for a residential rental, it's going to be a 7-day rental that you offer. For contractors, it can depend on the the project and the scope of the project, but around a 7-day rental. And prices range on the low end, and again, it's market to market. So a 10-yarder, which is our smallest, could be around $350. It could be closer to $500 depending on what area of the U.S. you're in. And on the other end of that, our 25, which is the largest, you're looking at probably 500 on the low end, and upwards of 700 in some of the higher priced markets.
For that entire period, if it was like a 7-day rental?
Yep. And there's a weight part of this too, where there's a tonnage that's built into that rental. And then if there's any overage, the overages get passed back to the customer. So you do have some protection on your margins as well.
How do you calculate the overages? Like, how do they check it?
Yeah, so that all happens at the transfer station. So you never know. No one knows what the weight of what's in their dumpster until they go to a dump site. So they weigh you. You dump the contents. They weigh you again, and you pay the difference.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because that's like some of the kind of things that with a lot of business models you're not going to run into, having to have the truck weighed and everything to see what the difference is. But it's good that it does protect you in case somebody ends up really overloading the thing. That's really important. What does the growth look like? Like if you're a franchisee and you're getting started after a few years, because you've got a little bit of a track record with those original franchises, what is possible? It's not to say that you're necessarily going to get there with any business model, because it's going to be the effort you put in and the things that
Yeah.
you do on a day-to-day basis. But what is the possibility?
Yeah. And really, when that question comes up, we always defer to Dustin's location, and Dustin's up to 5 trucks right now. He has
Okay.
150 dumpsters. And I said earlier, he's done last year, he did over $1 million in sales, in gross revenue. That number seems to be increasing this year. So once we know what that is, that'll be in next year's item 19 as well. But that, about a truck a year seems to be a goal or reasonable. I mean, and if it's, 16 months, 18 months, whatever, but that's kind of our aiming point. And, with each truck could come another 24 dumpsters until you get to a 2 or 3 truck operation. You can really stretch that number of how many dumpsters per truck for your business. But that's basically the goal.
I think, well, that's important because it also goes back to how much in the way of staffing you'll have to do over time. And, because it's one person per truck. So every time you bring on a truck, I mean, it's a fairly, straightforward business model, which is nice because a lot of business models are not. You're going to bring on a truck? No, you're probably going to have to hire somebody, because now you got 150 dumpsters that you're moving around, constantly.
Yeah. And when I say, Dustin, $1 million sounds nice, right? So we bring up that his numbers a lot, but he did that with 4 employees, which I think is noteworthy. Right?
It is.
Even now where he's at, having to focus more on the franchise side, he has a manager who runs the business for him. And so Dustin likes to drive, and he's out there a lot because he wants to be, but he also has the ability to be more hands off. When we have someone sign up and they're ready to go and we have a delivery day, Dustin's traveling to them to help them when the dumpsters get delivered, because that's a big moment, and making sure that the lot gets set up and that they're ready and they're feeling good to go. And he needs to be able to do that. So not only has he proven out that this is a business model that can grow and can grow quickly if you put the work in, but he's also proven that it lends itself to be hands off in a managerial model when you want it to be.
How hard is it? Because you mentioned a lot and such, and you're storing. So essentially you need some sort of a dirt lot or parking, whatever the place. How hard is that usually to find for a new franchisee? Because you got to find some place to put 25 dumpsters. Right.
It's not as hard as it seems initially. It can be a sticking point for a lot of people in the exploration process, where it seems overwhelming. Just the main reason being, you can't go to a site like LoopNet. You can't really find a lot of real estate agents who are going to find you the deal that you want. If you look at our system, system-wide, the average cost per month for their lot that they're renting is around $800 to $1,000 a month, which is pretty low. To find that deal, you have to just sniff it out in your territory. There's always lots available. There's people who own land who aren't doing anything with it that are willing to have you put some gravel down, and you only need about a half acre. So it seems more daunting than it is. We haven't had any franchisees where they weren't able to get their lot worked out before delivery day, which is about an 8-week turn time from when they sign up. Yeah.
So setup of the franchise itself, from the day that you sign to the day you're operating is pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. About 8 weeks. It could be 12. We seem to be in a better position now, but we weren't immune to the supply chain issues, at least when it came to the vehicles. So we had to navigate that about a year ago, but a lot of that seemed to calm down and inventory is a lot more consistent. So 8 weeks is a pretty reasonable. Well, we just did it recently with three new franchisees, and they were all right at that 8-week point.
So what kind of investment does a Dumpster Dudez franchise require to get up and running? What kind of costs are we looking at?
Yeah, so the total investment is going to land somewhere around $350,000. That's with the truck and the dumpsters, with all the assets. But those are financeable assets, right? So and depreciating assets. There's some tax advantages there too. To your cash investment, we like to see franchisees with somewhere around $120,000 in cash. But part of that, big chunk of that's going to the down payment for the truck and the dumpsters. Then there's our franchise fee. Our franchise fee is $40,000. But early on, we came up with a system where we offer an in-house financing option on that too. It's
Okay.
actually outlined in our item 5 of that FDD. So
Hmm.
there's some flexibility there that we offer too. And then everything else is, marketing, lot rental, insurance. The costs get pretty small after
What are
the asset.
what are the rent, like royalty and marketing fees that you can expect to pay?
So we don't have an ad fund, and we have a recommendation of a 4% ad spend in our FDD, but
Okay.
it's up to the franchisee. Where that came from, Brian Johnson, who I mentioned, has a marketing company, direct mail marketing, and they do marketing for a lot of franchise systems.
Hmm.
And with his experience, saw the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of that.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the decision for us that we made is that right now it feels like the right thing to do is to present all the marketing options to our franchisees and then let them decide what they want to spend and where they want to spend it. So there's a conversation that we have with everyone before they sign up, just to make sure they understand the importance of, you have to spend on marketing for a business to be successful, no matter what the business is. But they're in complete control of the spend. So that
Yeah.
number's up to them. And then our royalty is 7%
Yeah.
of the
Okay.
gross revenue.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got a reasonable startup cost. You can finance, a bunch of it, since it is actual vehicles. There is a tax advantage on the depreciation, which is good. Yeah. And then, it's really not really that, it doesn't take that long to get up and running. So let me ask you this, from the point of I'm up and running to the point where I'm profitable, have you seen, especially working with a lot of new franchisees, just some sort of average timeline to the break even point?
Yeah, one of our franchisees was actually featured in a podcast where he was asked this question, and for him, it seemed to be around the 3-month mark where he was getting cash flow positive or ahead of all the expenses that he had. That's, I think, somewhere in the first 6 months is what we're shooting for.
That's good.
Yeah, and what we've seen consistently. I'll say this as if you were a prospect in our system, as you know, there's no guarantees. So by no means are we able to promise that, but we've consistently seen this happen, relatively quickly in the grand scheme of things. And it's data driven. So in our training, for if you're a franchisee, for us, in part of our pricing training, and we're projecting your first 5 years of business, you actually know what that number is before you're open for business. You know how many rentals a month I need to hit to get to that point. And with the growth, I mean, we have it all laid out before you're up and running too. So it's not a guesswork thing, right?
Yeah, no, it's really important. Like, the more data that you have for any business, but this is, I mean, it's dumpster rentals, it's really about turns. It's similar to, any kind of, like retail. The more I can turn my product, which, the dumpsters being that product, the better you're going to do. What's the average? Because if you had 25 dumpsters, what's the ideal number to have rented out? And I know they're going to vary because of the sizes. And I think you mentioned that, you got 4 types, 4 sizes, 6 of each, but what's the ideal number to still have on the lot so you have something available and always having rented out?
Yeah, as you're growing, it's a utilization rate of 3 that we say, right? So that means you're turning each dumpster about 3 times per month. Okay. So around 77, if he had 25, 75 rentals. Now that's just the indicator that, hey, it's time to start looking at your next purchase. Because in theory, if you're doing a utilization rate of 4 on a 7-day rental, that means an empty lot, right? So we're trying to get ahead of that. And that's really the metric we're using. Now, once you hit where you feel like, where Dustin's at, it's a bit of a different equation for him because of how many assets that he has. Just because he hits a utilization rate for 3 with 150 dumpsters doesn't necessarily mean he needs to purchase more. So I think it changes towards the later stage as the business matures. But until you're around 4 trucks in one territory, that metric holds true. We want to get more before you're at a utilization rate of 4.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty much wraps up our episode, Willie. How, if somebody wants to be a Dumpster Dudes franchisee. How are they going to get a hold of you? Because they say, I love the name, by the way. I think that's like really, it's really good. It's like, it's very down to earth, like, like this is what we do, it's dumpsters, and I think it's a really good business model because it's really straightforward. Yeah. And that's what a lot of people, are definitely interested in nowadays, is something that's really easy to understand, but there are details and you've got those things covered. And that's the value of buying into a franchise. So how do they get a hold of you, Willie?
Yeah, I think step one, pop on over to the website, dumpsterdudez.com. And then from there, you can click to get more info. Anyone can reach out to me directly. It's Willie, WILLIE, at dumpsterdudes.com. I'll even throw my cell phone number out there, 484-877-7607. So 3 different ways to get a hold of us. Whatever works for you, let us know.
Okay. Yeah. If you're looking to get into the franchising space, this is a good route, whether you want to be an owner operator or you'd like to be a little semi-absentee, hire somebody to be able to do it. Keep an eye on those books, of course. Yeah. But this is a really good opportunity, and, construction has stayed pretty strong depending on the market you're in. I know the one I'm in, it is not slowed down at all. And there is always going to be a need for a dumpster somewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in. My name's Cash Miller. I'm your host. I'm also the CEO of Titan Media Works, and we've been talking about Dumpster Dudes today. We'll see you on the next episode.